In this presentation, we're going to educate you about the women of the Bible in a way that you may have never experienced before. History, as we know it, has been rewritten, rearranged, reorganized, revised, and outright fabricated. It has been taught in a way that is not true to biblical history. When you consider the geographical location and setting of most Bible stories, you will begin to understand what has taken place. Also, consider what those of recent times have changed to confuse the minds of the whole entire world. One of the biggest and most notable changes is the fact that the human landscape has changed profusely. Go with us on this amazing journey of discovery and education.
This production was birthed out of the need to reclaim a history that has been lost or stolen from people of color. The Bible is the most important book in the world and has been the source of many debates. It tells us about the Most High, His love, His plan, His judgments, His expectations, and His promises to His people. It also teaches us how to live in a way that pleases Him and blesses others. This is why it is very important to know who is who in the Bible so that we can accurately apply it to today. We've selected 10 women of the Bible out of hundreds and will give you a brief summary of their stories. This untold Black biblical history is very important in getting us to reconnect with our true heritage.
According to the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible, Eve was the first woman created by God. She was created from one of Adam's ribs to be his companion. She is known as the mother of all humanity and was the wife of Adam. She gave birth to Cain, Abel, Seth, and other children. Eve is also known for her disobedience to God. She ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil after being tempted by the serpent. She then shared the fruit with Adam, and as a result, they were both expelled from the Garden of Eden. Eve's story has been the subject of much debate and interpretation throughout history. Some religious organizations teach that Eve is responsible for the fall of all humanity, while others view her as the fall guy, so to speak, of her husband's direct disobedience to the Most High. It is said that she may have been deceived, but he chose disobedience. Eve is described as being named Hova or Cheva in the Torah. Most of her story can be found in Genesis of the Bible in the first 4 chapters. Achsah was the daughter of Caleb of the tribe of Judah. She was given in marriage to Othniel, son of Kenaz, in exchange for his taking of Kiriath Sefer, which was identified as Dibea in Judges. Achsah encouraged her new husband to ask Caleb for a field. Her father also asked what she wanted. At her request, he gave her the upper and lower springs in the Negev, named Galathmaim in Judges 1. Achsah was successful in gaining some of her family's land and water resources, which were normally not given to women in ancient Israelite culture.
Azubah was the wife of King Asa, the third king of Judah, and the mother of King Jehoshaphat of Israel. Her name Azubah means desolation in Hebrew. According to the Hebrew Bible, she was the daughter of Shilhi. Her husband, King Asa, was the third king of Judah and the fifth king of the house of David. Asa was the son of Abijah and his mother was Mocha. According to the Hebrew Bible, he was succeeded by his son Jehoshaphat. Asa was known for his staunch attitude of keeping the traditional worship of the Most High and in rooting out idolatry and any immorality that came along with it. When he died, he was greatly honored by his people and was considered a righteous king. However, it is said that in his old age, when afflicted with a foot disease, he went to the physicians for his healing and not the Most High.
Bathsheba was married to Uriah the Hittite, one of King David's warriors. One day, while Bathsheba was bathing, King David saw her and began to lust after her. He had someone bring her to him so that he could sleep with her. Bathsheba later became pregnant and David tried to cover up his sins by trying to get Uriah to return home to sleep with his wife. However, Uriah did not go home to sleep with her, but rather stayed at the door of the king with the rest of the men of war. David then strategically had Uriah put in the front line of battle, where he was later killed. Bathsheba mourned the death of her husband Uriah, but eventually married King David. She and King David later had a child together that died as a result of David's sin of adultery, covetousness, and murder. This was the punishment of the Most High upon him for what he had done to the house of Uriah. They later had a son together, who they named Solomon, who went on to become very wise and wealthy.
Elizabeth was the wife of Zechariah, a priest, the mother of John the Baptist, and a relative of Mary, the mother of Yahushua, the one whom the world calls Jesus. She was said to be a righteous woman in the eyes of the Most High. She was also very obedient and faithful to his commandments. Elizabeth was a woman of age, barren, and unable to have children. An angel appeared to her husband, Zechariah, and told him that his wife, Elizabeth, was pregnant. He was very doubtful about this, and thus, as a result of his doubting heart, the angel made him mute until the day John the Baptist was born. The name Elizabeth stems from the name Elisheba, which means God is my oath in the Hebrew language. In ancient Persia, King Ahasuerus banished his queen Vashti for disobeying him. Esther, cousin and adopted daughter of Mordecai, became the new queen. Haman, the king's right-hand man, plotted to kill Mordecai and exterminate all Israelites in the Persian Empire. Mordecai asked Esther to save her people. Esther bravely appeared before the king uninvited and invited him and Haman to 2 banquets. At the banquets, Esther convinced the king to save her people and hang Haman on the gallows he had built for Mordecai. The king's edict to kill the Israelites was reversed, and the Jews celebrated their victory by initiating the festival of Purim. Esther 5 verse 3 And the king said to her, "What do you wish, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given to you, up to half the kingdom."
Huldah was a prophetess who was married to Shallum and lived in Jerusalem during the reign of King Josiah. As a keeper of the wardrobe, she and her husband resided in the Mishnah, or second part or quarter of Jerusalem. King Josiah and other officials consulted with Huldah to get opinions on important matters concerning Israel after discovering the Book of the Law during renovations of Solomon's temple. Some consider her to be a teacher and a very wise and important woman of biblical times. So Hilkiah the priest, and Ahikam, and Ikbo, and Shaphan, and Asahiah went unto Huldah the prophetess, the wife of Shallum the son of Tikvah, the son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she dwelt in Jerusalem in the college Winkiface, and they communed with her. Jael would be considered a female warrior of her time and the slayer of Sisera, a Canaanite commander. She was the wife of Heber the Kenite and a heroine of the Battle of Mount Tabor. The Canaanites under King Jabin of Hazor oppressed the Israelites for 20 years and showed no mercy. They had an army of 900 chariots as they oppressed the Israelites. Deborah, a prophetess and judge appointed by the Most High in Israel, sent for Barak, the leader of the Israelite army, to gather his men for the battle against Jabin's forces. Barak made it clear that he would only go if Deborah went with him. During the battle, Sisera fled on foot and hid himself inside Jael's tent. Jael used that opportunity to take him out and drove a tent peg his temple while he was sleeping. Jael is a clear biblical example of the strength of women in leadership roles among our people. Judith was a woman during biblical times who was a widow and had great faith in the Most High. Her story can be found in the Apocrypha, a collection of writings that are not part of the Hebrew Bible. It tells how Judith, a beautiful and faithful widow, saved her people from the invasion of the Assyrian army led by Holofernes, a cruel general. The story is set in the time of the Babylonian exile, when many Israelites were living under foreign rule and faced pressures to assimilate to the dominant culture. The Assyrians, who were sent by King Nebuchadnezzar to conquer the world, besieged the town of Bethulia, which was the gateway to Jerusalem. They cut off the water supply and threatened to starve the inhabitants into submission. Judith, a rich and devout widow, was outraged by the lack of faith and courage of the town elders, who decided to surrender to the Assyrians if God did not save them in 5 days. She devised a plan to deliver her people and asked God for help. She dressed herself in fine clothes and jewels, and with her maid went out of the town to the Assyrian camp. She pretended to be a defector who had valuable information about the weakness of the Israelites. She charmed Holofernes with her beauty and wisdom and gained his trust. On the 4th night, when Holofernes was drunk and asleep in his tent, Judith took his sword and cut off his head. She put his head in a bag and returned to Bethulia with her maid. She showed the head to the town leaders and urged them to attack the Assyrians while they were leaderless and confused. The Israelites followed her advice and routed the Assyrian army. They praised God for his deliverance and honored Judith for her heroic deed. Judith led a song of thanksgiving and celebration and remained a respected and influential figure in Israel until her death.
Tamar's life story is recounted in the ancestor narratives of Genesis. She was married to Judah's eldest son, who died at a young age. Judah then gave her to his second son, Onan, who also died soon after. Judah then refused to give her to his third son, Shelah, fearing that he too would die. Tamar was left in a state of limbo, unable to remarry and without any children. She then devised a plan to trick Judah into impregnating her. She disguised herself as a prostitute and seduced Judah, who was unaware of her true identity. Tamar became pregnant and gave birth to twin sons, Perez and Zerah. Her story illustrates her resourcefulness, loyalty, and willingness to take matters into her own hands when necessary. Of course, in today's times her actions would be frowned upon, yet in biblical times it was considered a righteous act.
Many are starting to challenge today's representation of history by putting together the missing pieces of the puzzle. Knowledge of self is being greatly increased as the truth is being revealed day by day. We must begin to challenge the false narratives taught throughout the world and uncover the truth about our past. It is okay to research your own history and not be made to feel divisive for doing so. Our history is very important and would help us to better understand certain aspects of our lives today. The modern-day misrepresentations and portrayals of ancient people, ancient lands, and ancient cultures were prophesied. In the book of Maccabees, it states the following, 1 Maccabees 3:48, "And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images." You can now own a copy of our more than 200 pages of colorful, realistic portrayals of the women of the Bible that is more historically correct than what is circulated through movies, television, and printed media. Each woman has her own story and scriptural references to help you with your biblical studies. Order your copy today by visiting www.thewomenofthebible.com.